So now that we have a little bit of background on you, how has the virus situation affected your day to day? Has it been very impactful to you personally, or just you notice it impacting? I guess what I'm asking is, what are your thoughts on how it's affecting you and people around you in your community?
Well, it's had a pretty big impact on me, at least last year. I ended up killing my grandmother, which, it wasn't too much of a shock. She was in her 90s. And the second my mother told me that, I appreciate it. It was pretty rough the first few weeks. I won't lie, because I went and grabbed some, not Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and I started crying in the drive-thru because it really started hitting me that she's gone. I'll never see her again. And that hurt. It really did hurt. Someone brought it into the nursing home, and it spread through the old folks. And guess what? She died in her sleep. And, that's, at least I'm happy about that. I'm happy that she, didn't suffer like my grandfather did. But, when I see people online talk about how lackadaisical they are about keeping their distance and not affecting other people, it does make me angry. Less now, because I understand that people are just selfish and idiots. And so if they can't see something, then it's not a problem. A lot of people's attitudes, and some people are just recalcitrant. Like they have to be right about everything. And it's given me perspective on how bias works. People who were repeating lines from folks in positions of power that have no scientific background are now very skeptical about statements and interventions from people with relevant medical backgrounds. And that dynamic is silly when you think about it. I'm referencing Trump's promotion of hydroxychloroquine, and the many man hours and millions of dollars that was poured into research and development of all the current vaccines, right? And I see the same people, so the same names who were like, we need to try this. We need, compassionate interventions. And I forget the official name for it, but just, we need to try all these different things. Like, cool, we can trial different things like convalescent plasma, right? That, getting antibodies from someone who's already had it and use that. Italy was doing that very early on. I like that because that has science behind it. Not this cocktail from some Yahoo that doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, right? There's nothing. I want to see, for me personally, I want to see the pharmacokinetics of what's going on, right? I have enough education now to understand how to read those type of papers, and it wasn't there. But now that we have RNA-based technology in vaccines, everybody and their mother is now a biochemist and immunologist, and man, they can talk it up with the best of them, except they can't. And so understanding how that sort of bias works has been kind of one of my side projects, because it's important. Because if you don't have a population that's properly educated, then you have situations like in South America and in the UK where you have these variants popping up. And so, that can pose an issue. But luckily, recently, I think the CDC had actually said that the variants don't seem to pose an issue. If you're currently vaccinated, the variants aren't really going to, be able to escape, the vaccination. You're not going to need a second one as of yet. So we're ready for now.
So you kind of touched on what my next question was going to be, which was basically the response to COVID in the United States. Where do you think we went wrong? Could this have been? I know that viruses aren't necessarily something that can be prevented, but did it have to be as bad as it was? And basically, where did we go wrong, and what should we have done to make it not be as bad as it ended up being, in your opinion?
Initially, I saw a lot of politicians and even a president sort of refer to this virus as a hoax in some aspect, in some form, or just diminish and downplay the severity of it, even though we knew as early as January 2020 that this was an issue. We should have immediately stopped international travel and said, look, we need CDC, get together with WHO and figure out what we can do to make sure that people are going to take the proper precautions.
Didn't he pull us out of the WHO or break off relations with the WHO?
Yes, we broke off relations with them fairly early on. They didn't want to play ball with whatever narrative he wanted to spin, so they had to go. And so that's when you see a lot of tension between Fauci and Trump at the time, because he has what he wants to believe, and then there's reality with people with PhDs and decades of experience in these fields. Because hey, just believing what you want will change reality, and that's probably one of the most frustrating things is me communicating with people on social media and asking them, so hey, what do you think should happen? This is a virus. It's pretty mobile. It has RO2. It can, one person can infect every 2 people, and then those 2 people infect 2 more people, and then it multiplies. We don't know a whole lot about it right now. We don't know a whole the entire genome wasn't even mapped yet at the time. So it would have been best for us to lock down, stay put, start disinfecting shit, and start to properly protect ourselves with masks. And then, of course, eventually we got the 6 feet social distancing policy. But there was, in the first few months, the virus ran rapid and just decimated, especially here in Houston. I have a physician friend that works in West Houston, and within, I would say, mid to late January, he had gotten it. And I can tell you that it sounded terrible. I've met this guy in real life a few times, met him online, and he sounded like he was dying. His coworker caught it before him and was on a ventilator and died a few months ago. The girl, I think she was 28 years old, physician.
Wow, that's not very common, so I'm led to believe, to be of that age and to just die from it. But it has happened. She had a particular genetic mutation that made her more. That's long and short of it. There was something congenital that caused her to be more susceptible to it, and she went on the ventilator, and then that was it. And this was after he told her, "No, you'll be fine," because he had been fine. So, but people's lackadaisical attitude, about social distancing and all the interventions contribute to stuff like that, because the virus is allowed to proliferate by people who think, well, because I'm not sick, that therefore it's not. No, you can't see a virus, right? People don't understand that, this is a fomite, this is a fomite, this is a fomite, and your spittle that contains viral particles can help transfer that. And they can stay on some of these fomites for some pathogens for days. And it's hard to communicate with people who don't have the requisite knowledge to really understand the gravity of the situation. And that's sort of a jab at our education system. It's cool that people understand the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but if people don't understand that every year there is a flu virus, and we have to keep getting vaccinated because this thing mutates so quickly. Now, this virus in particular, in the coronavirus family, are known to be zoonotic. Meaning that they travel from species to species, from bat to pig to human to cow to whatever. And so when you have the transference between species, it's sometimes hard to catch because the cow's not going to tell you that I'm sick, and right. When it does jump species, you can't really tell what it's going to do, whether it's going to be more transmissible or is it going to be more deadly, because there's a balance that it has to strike between the two. If I'm more I'll give you an example, MERS, which is a cousin to this coronavirus. MERS that struck a few years ago in the Middle East, it killed a third of the people who caught it. Outright killed them. So the death rate was much higher than...
Oh, considerably higher, but several degrees of magnitude higher. Every third person. So if you get as a family of 3, one person in that house is dead if everybody catches it easily. But then that reduces its transmissibility. So it didn't travel very far. But a virus like COVID can go either way. It can reduce its transmissibility and become more deadly. And it doesn't take a whole lot. Because you think about the pool of people that it has, it's a global pandemic. Any one of those strains could potentially become like that. And people don't realize that. People don't realize that MERS, the cousin to what we're having to face now, is that very thing. And we just got it a few years early. So trying to fit all that into somebody's brain online who already has it in their mind that, watching a few YouTube videos makes them an expert in immunology. That's tough. It's really, really tough. And so
it seems that it was not only the scientific ignorance that played a factor, but it seems like politics played a factor, and just people's sense of, invincibility. Because I don't know, this is how I saw the events transpire with people with the resistance to the idea of this virus. There was the initial denial phase where you had people in positions of authority saying it's a hoax, it's not real. And, for long after that, people still refused to believe that there was actually a virus. And then there was a virus, but it's going to go away in April when it warms up. And so people didn't think it was that bad. And then there was a virus and it's still here, but it's not that bad. More people die from the flu. So it's just another flu. And then it was, it only kills old people and I'm young, so therefore I'm invincible. And it's just like this particular demographic of Americans kept finding a new excuse to not care or to not educate themselves. Is that how you perceived it as well?
Oh yeah, no, and I've heard most of those excuses too. I love it has the same mortality rate as the flu. And I said, no, actually it has 1 degree of magnitude worse than the flu. Actually, if you want, because there's a website that tracks all this stuff, it can tell you. Mm-hmm. And some people were just demonstrably wrong about statistics, but that wasn't surprising to me.
What is up with vaccine hesitancy? Why is it such a thing? And then I'm going to have you focus that onto the African American community, because I know it's a thing in the Black community.
Yeah. So I've talked to a few people, my wife's coworkers, one of my old friends from the Army, and the common thread is I'm not sure what the vaccines will do. I don't think there was enough testing for it. Something like that. Or the FDA didn't approve it. And the issues with a lot of this is that the FDA, it's not officially FDA approved. That's absolutely true. There's an emergency clause that allows vaccines to be rolled out after very extensive testing for global pandemic purposes. So that's just that. It is what it is. Now, what's interesting is that the people who are hesitant about this don't have an alternative. And that's what I find always interesting is that, so we do nothing. Your option to protect yourself from a virus that you have no idea what it can do to you is to do nothing, rather than taking the precaution from an intervention that has been thoroughly checked. And because when people say that it hasn't been thoroughly tested, they have no idea what being thoroughly tested even means. I have yet to find one person that actually knows how vaccine testing works, much less understand their own immune system. So they're buying lines from other people because fear is easy. It's easy to go with, hey, I'm going to get sick and I may get over it, versus what is this cocktail that someone concocted going to do to me? And that's where a lot of the hesitancy seems to come from. And I've heard from several people, I want to wait for some time until they do some studies on the long-term effects. Well, by the time that happens, you're going to be affected with it. That's just that's the fun part. They're willing to wait until the virus infects them and has long-term effects before they get studies on what the long-term effects from the vaccine is.
Yeah,